たところで守りきれるのかどうか。
Hello guys, this is me Simo Orahara, and in this video I'll talk about Kira's Bankai. Honestly, I wasn't thinking about Kira's Bankai, but after talking about Aizen's Bankai, one of the fans in the comments asked me to talk about Kira's Bankai, and I immediately remembered Kobo's words before the final arc. Some people may not know this, but Kira and Yumichika were among the characters which we were expecting to see their Bankai in the final arc, because one of the questions proposed to Kobo before the final arc was about the fate of the Shinigami who do not possess a Bankai, to which Kobo replied, "Do you mean the vice captain? Bankai is not a big deal, however, who deserves it?" And as you can see, Kobo said that Yumichika is a good choice, and also said that Kira's Bankai might be a little nauseating, and judging by Kobo's words, many start to wonder what Kira's Bankai might be, and what does nauseating mean. So guys, based on the word nauseating, I will try to give you my theory about Kira's Bankai and why Kobo said it might be a disgusting or nauseating Bankai. First, in what classification can we put Kira's Bankai? The Bankai that are an extension of the Shikai abilities, or a Bankai with abilities different from a Shikai? According to Kobo, the answer may be the second option, meaning that the abilities of the Bankai will be different from the abilities of the Shikai that we know, like Soifon's Bankai or Orahara Kiski or even Hisagi's Bankai. Usually the Bankai abilities of these characters are related to the Shinigami's personality, behavior and philosophy, all of which affect the Bankai's ability, and the most prominent example is Hisagi's Bankai. It puts the opponent and Hisagi in a situation where life and death cease to exist, and all of that due to Hisagi's fear of death. Therefore, to try to speculate on Kira's Bankai, we must talk about Kira as a person and his Zanpakuto's philosophy. So first, when you delve deeper into the character of Kira, you will find something strange. Kira is a member of a noble family, though one of the lowest families in the Seirechi community. Despite the loss of his parents at an early age, Kira did not show signs of depression. He did not appear as a negative person who lacks confidence or lives his life in despair. And you can find that in the chapter where Kobo drew Kira when he was a student at Shino Academy. The boy was a cheerful person and had a sense of humor with everyone, especially with his school friends like Renji and Momo. However, all of that changed after Kira joined the third squad. Kira the student is not Kira the vice captain. His features became colder and began to show signs of misery. Perhaps the main reason for this transformation is Kira joining the third division. The third division logo symbolizes several things, including despair, and this concept fits Wabisuke's philosophy, whose name by the way means the wretched one, and according to Viz, the penitent one, and we will talk about Wabisuke in detail shortly. Back to the change in Kira's personality, it can be said is due to the influence of his captain Ichimaru Gin. Gin's character is like a snake that grows terror and distress on the victim as it wraps around him. And perhaps the most prominent example that can illustrate the extent of Gin's ability to manipulate the psychology of others is what Rukia said when he passed in front of her. Just read how she describes him. Just by talking to her brother and not even talking to her, she felt like he is a hungry snake wrapped around her neck, making her feel uncomfortable, afraid and unable to move. This is only Rukia who was passing by. Imagine Kira who joined the division and became his vice captain for decades. Therefore, I say that Kira's character might have changed because of Gin. And so, Kira's desperate character was reflected in his Zanpakuto, who as we said is called the penitent or the wretched. And frankly, I prefer to use the name of penitent because it indicates the nature of his Bankai, according to my theory. So, in general, a penitent is a person who has committed many sins, then fails rumors for them and thus try to get rid of them by being penitent and not repeating them. Even Wabisuke form in Shikai is like the Japanese style apology position, by kneeling both on his feet and his hand in a position that indicates that that person is asking for forgiveness. And Wabisuke applies the same principle on his opponents by doubling their weights by cutting them. So based on that concept, the victim is kneeling on the ground in a groveling position. This is the Shikai mode. So I say that the Bankai would be the opposite of repentance. If the Shikai applies the principle of apology and remorse for sins, then the Bankai embodies these sins in a various situations, whether they were material sins, meaning the ones Kira committed in the past, such as drawing his sword on his friend Momo and he considered it as a sin, or sensual sins such as feeling despair, depression, envy, and all negative feelings. And when we think about sins, our minds automatically imagine them in the form of disgusting perceptions. Many pictures and paintings embodied sins in the form of dirt or swamps of wickedness. And that's why I said that the Bankai would be the opposite of the Shikai. The Bankai will reverse the process of repentance from sins to embody those sins as the Bankai's power. And because they are sins, they will smell very disgusting. The Bankai will cause Kira's skin color to change and emit such strong smell in a wide range, and that the enemy will have to deal with that stench before he deals with the Bankai's abilities. The smell of despair and sins will be the title of Kira's Bankai. In contrast to the Shikai, which does not allow Kira to perform long-range attacks, the Bankai will have range attacks. These attacks are like acid that once they hit the opponent, it will embody all the mistakes he made on his body, and so that will make the opponent feel terrible pain because it is acid, and secondly the smell of his sins will fill his body physically and sensually. So if some of those sins were, for example, envy, it will embody it in the form of a smell, and that person will feel it strongly. This is one of many examples that will greatly distract him. The more sins a person possesses, the more deadly the Bankai abilities will be, and thus Kira would have the advantage of being immune to those smells and making fatal attacks to the opponents. Therefore, I believe that the Bankai is the opposite of what the Shikai represents, the presentation of sins in the form of embodied smells, so that Kira benefits from them. And the fact that the opposite happens to his opponent perfectly fits what Kobo said about the Bankai being disgusting. I honestly don't know whether the Bankai might have effects on Kira after using it or not, but I imagine that Kira will perform a certain ritual when he wants to remove the Bankai, such as a quick shower that falls within the Bankai's abilities, in order to remove that smell of him. Or he can get rid of the Bankai's abilities by returning to the Shikai, because the Shikai reflects the concept of the Bankai abilities. So guys, what do you think of my theory? Do you have other ideas about Kira's Bankai based on what Kobo said? Let me know what do you think guys, and see you in my next video.